So here to enlighten us on this very profound subject is Doug Dietz, the innovation architect for GE Healthcare.
Thank you. Wow, it's great to be here. So I'm from Wisconsin, so it would be nicer to be here like in February, but I'm happy to be here to share a little bit of what we're doing in the healthcare space. And this was actually a sketch that a friend gave me, and I thought it would be a great way to introduce myself to you. And I want to tell you a series of stories of how we worked with design thinking and how we worked that in with kids and how to make it a little bit better experience for them in the healthcare journey. So this is, the hairball here is kind of GE. As you guys can imagine, General Electric is a big company. I think we're over 300,000 employees. So this is me orbiting the hairball. So the stories that I'm going to share with you today are some of the stories that I've been able to work on in my career at GE Healthcare. I've been there about 27 years. And sometimes I have to dip back into the hairball, into the GE big company. But some of these stories I want to share you is even within a big company, you can be an entrepreneur and do some new things. So I want to share some stories with you on that. GE Healthcare, we do a lot of kind of high-end radiology equipment. This is just an example of a few of them, whether it's the new MR scanners, the one that's on the right there. We have a lot of different modalities to do different scanning for you, but this is not what I'm here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about our new shiny objects, because this was actually a picture that my boss sent me when he was visiting India, and this was a birthing room, and they had just cleaned it up for him for when he went into the room for his tour. So do you see the piece of GE equipment here? Does anybody see it? I can see about the first 3 rows. It's right, can you see it right there? But your eye is drawn to the bucket and some of the other things that are in there. So what I really want to talk to you guys about today is a little bit of that humbleness that came to me in my experience of how then to work with families and kids going through the healthcare system, because it isn't all those shiny objects that I showed you the first time. So this is kind of the point of view, and this is the nature of the work, and I want to show you some examples here. That's one of our existing products there. It's a little bit older, but that's a nuclear scanner that you can see there in the picture. And believe it or not, that is actually a color picture. So it looks black and white, but you see a guy's blue jeans there, and you can see, so what does that, what does that look like to you guys in the front row? What does that piece of equipment look like? Yeah, like a big stapler, right? Or I've had kids tell me that it's a transformer. Just a crazy looking piece of equipment. And what happens with children when they come into that environment is it's really traumatic for them, as you can imagine. So on the very bottom there, you can see that what I call the anxiety journey that a family goes through, but mainly a child goes through as they go through the radiology experience where they're going to get a scan like this. So it starts at home. It doesn't start usually when they get to the hospital. It starts at home, and they have to go, whether it's to the dentist or the hospital or wherever. Usually the parents, and some of you are parents in here for sure, have to tell a few white lies to get your child in the car, tell them where they're going to go. And then when you get to the hospital, there's usually those lines on the floor that you have to follow through, and there's like 3 elevators to go out to the radiology department. But when you actually see this piece of equipment, this GE piece of equipment here, that's the top of that curve where the tears start to come. And this is where the children really have a tough time with holding still and being able to have a scan that looks good. Because our equipment is amazing. It's almost like Superman, right? It gives you the ability to look inside the human body without going in there and opening you up, which I think is great. But for a child, that's a pretty scary environment. So this was actually the point of view statement using design thinking that we did for this project. So we met scared families trying not to fall apart during their hospital visit. We are amazed to realize that they have to sedate 80% of the children, depending on the modality, for them to hold still for the scan. And it would change the world if we could capitalize on the child's amazing imagination to transform the radiology experience into more of an adventure. So I thought about this when I worked on this project. So this is a little bit like me orbiting that hairball, is where are kids so creative? And this was actually a picture a coworker sent me. And I was growing up, when I was growing up, it was in the 60s, so we didn't have this. But this is 3 kitchen chairs and a blanket. And you can see these cute little girls right here that are underneath there that looks like they have their iPad. So in my day and age, we had like a flashlight and a comic book, right? But these girls are under there with an iPad. And what is that? What are 3 kitchen chairs and a blanket? What do you think, front row? Yeah, it's a fort, it's a castle, it's a truck, it's a spaceship, it can be anything. And it's amazing that the power of their imagination, and especially for you parents, when you have your kids, I know I have 3 children, and when it was time to eat or whatever, we couldn't even get them out of there, right? You had to grab them by the ankles and kind of pull them to get them out from underneath the blankets there, because they've transformed that story and that journey in their mind, and that really is a spaceship. That really is a castle. So we took that inspiration from kids. I'm going to show you a little bit different ways that they helped us to develop some really neat adventures to get through the radiology experience. So I'm going to show you the first one here. So believe it or not, guys, this is the exact same equipment that you said was a stapler, that you said was a clamper, that big one. This is the same detectors. There's a little bit different industrial design on here. And you can see down the lower left, that's the scanner without anything. What we've done is we transformed this experience for this radiology experience for this nuclear exam into a total adventure. So it's a little hard to see, but on the very back wall, there's a waterfall that comes down and it cascades. It's just plastic. Cascades down off the wall onto the floor. There's a koi pond that goes underneath the scanner. And then that table that's sticking out there looks like a hollowed out canoe. So it looks like a log. And that's lowered down when the child comes into the room, so it looks like it's lowered down into the river, into the pond. So there's a reason for the child to lay on their back. There's a reason for the child to hold still. They'll say, have you been in a canoe before? Remember how important it is to lay still? Or if it's somebody new, they say, you know, you're going to be in a boat and you can hold still. And the technologists get into the folks that help run the scan, they get into the experience as well. So they'll say things like, if you hold really still, the fish will start going around you as you take your exam. So if you look on those detectors, there's fish on there. So those detectors need to go around the patient during the scan, and it'll literally look like the fish are going around the young child when they're holding still. And they'll literally hold still without sedation because they think they're making these fish jump. It's just amazing how they do that. And I'll talk to you a little bit about the specifics, but in this modality, the sedation rate has gone down about 80% from what they had to do with children without Adventure Series to what they have to do with Adventure Series. Another kind of magic to this, if you look on the floor, you'll see those rocks that kind of go by the koi fish pond, and then we've taken those out the hall, out the door and down the hall a little bit. And it's amazing to see the families coming down, and the child knows they're going to Adventure River, and they'll be standing on the rocks, and they're kind of walking down the hall on the rocks, and they'll look back, and their parents will be just walking down the hall, and they'll go, no, 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 you gotta be on the rocks. You gotta be on the rocks. So their whole family is going down the hallway into the room following on the rocks. And for me, that kind of anxiety journey that I showed you early, where they come down and it just peaks way up as high as you can get when they see the equipment, that's when the child is holding their mom's leg and they're looking out from behind and they see that big stapler and they start to cry and then they have to be sedated. That is a total reframe when you think the child is actually leading the family down the hallway in charge, getting their parents in line to where they're going to go because they're ready to go on an adventure. So I want to show you a few other images of some of the other adventures we've done, and then also a little bit of how we got to those answers and how we really embraced our customers first to give us that information. So this is a beautiful set of images. I love seeing these. These are some great kids that I work with. I'm sorry. It's really powerful to work with children, to allow them to help you to get through the experience that they're going through. These are beautiful children. Yeah, I kind of promised myself not to do this, but oh well. There's only a couple of you here. But these are beautiful folks. So if you look at in the upper left there, we're doing some sketches together, using design thinking, how we can ideate together. Gaining that empathy from these kids and from these families of how we can make a very special journey for them. If you look at the middle one on the top there, that's where we really use the customers to help us to prototype, to mock up the rooms. You can kind of see those scale rooms there, and you can lift those walls off and sketch on them and put them back on. So that's me working with some folks. That's actually at the Children's Hospital in Chicago. And along with that, it was kind of amazing is that working with the customer in that, we also realized in the neighborhood or in the community, there are other people that had kind of a little bit of that same vision. So if you look on the lower left there, that is actually the entryway to the emergency room to where our CAT scanner, our CT scanner is. So see, there's actually a gal that's sitting on that coral. So that coral's like about 12 feet tall. And that's the shed aquarium helped the hospital to put in the entryway rooms that are on the left. And then the actual CT scanner is that one that's in the middle there. So the table looks like a yellow submarine, so it looks like you're going on a yellow submarine ride, and you go through a coral reef. And it's beautiful. We have harp music that goes in there that was designed especially by the music therapist to get the child's heart to beat at the exact rate that is the best for a cardiac exam, if that's what they're trying to do. We have actually on this one, we have a disco ball, a small one, that goes behind the scanner, and we hit it with a white light. And that whole room, guys, and this is an emergency room. So imagine the chaotic environment that you know when you watch an emergency room show on TV. That's exactly what it looks like. But this is right in the middle there. And when you hit that disco ball with the white light, it turns that room it fully engulfs that room in bubbles. And when that disco ball slowly rotates around, that whole room is filled with these bubbles that actually move. And you can imagine when the ball is closer to the wall, the bubbles are kind of small, but when it's further away, the bubbles are big. So you have these varied sized bubbles that go in there. So when the family goes into this room together, there's the harp music, there's the bubbles that fill the room. We have the scent of lavender in there. It's kind of a clear water lavender scent in there. So we really try to tickle all the senses of the family when they go in and totally transform the experience from what it is before. And actually, we just installed, very similar to this room right here, this Coral City room, in Miami Children's. It just got installed, I think, about 3 weeks ago. So if you're from this area and you go to get an MRI scan at Children's, your child is going to be able to go through a Coral City on a yellow submarine ride like this. And then again, the sedation rate here has gone down significantly. I believe in this modality it's probably about 30%. I think it's like 27% that it's gone down, that we don't have to sedate as many kids, which is pretty exciting. Imagine this, guys. So this is a CT scanner, but it's a pirate adventure. So you walk in on the plank there, or kind of on the dock there, and there's a plank that goes to the table, and the table's down low, and you go onto the table, and then you actually go in for your CT scan. And I included on this one the before image, which is in the lower left there, you can see. And if you look at the aperture, kind of that round part that you go through in the middle, and if you look at the before and you look at the if you look at the after, can you tell if one looks bigger than the other? What do you guys think? Yeah, if you look at the before, it looks pretty tiny, right? And it looks like, did we go in there and like stretch it out and then put some graphics on there? No, we actually just used just a little bit of illusion there where we put the steering wheel, that round wooden, your eye picks up that instead of the shadow of the small bore. And then when we radially took out the handlebars for that you can steer the ship by, it also brings your eye out to the outside. So we've used some just illusion that has helped you to make that look like it's a larger bore than it was when we have nothing on the front of the scanner. And then also that white sail there, it's a little bit hard to tell in the photograph, but that's a cone that goes in, so it looks like the white sail is filled with air. And the story that goes with this one, which is a little bit tough to tell, but I'll try, is in this one we had the scent of pina colada. So we had a bunch of the cabinets that were on one side of the room, and I remember one of the young child said, "This reminds me of the dentist," when they saw the cabinetry, and we said, "Ooh, that's definitely not good." So we kind of turned it into a tiki hut. So we were testing different scents in there. So we put the scent of pina colada in there. So I was talking to some parents in there after their little girl had gone through her scan, and I just said, is that pina colada? Because I saw they were kind of elbowing each other and kind of giggling. And I went over and I was talking to them. They said, yeah, it reminded us of our honeymoon, and they were smiling and giggling. And I noticed there was a relationship between the parents and their children that's very strong when the environment is very tense. So you can imagine they always keep an eye on each other. They also react from each other on what kind of response that family has. So it's kind of like when your child goes running down the sidewalk and they trip and fall and they look back at you. If you kind of say, no, just dust it off and keep running, or if you go, oh my God, what's wrong with you? And you can elicit response because you really monitor off each other. But I just was talking with the parents and they said, yeah, the pina colada reminded us of our honeymoon. So we were kind of giggling, and I noticed the little girl was picking up on that and having some fun in the room. And then the little girl came up and she's pulling on her mom's shirt as I'm talking to her. And her mom's kind of blowing her off at first. And then after a while, she just looks down and says, what is it, honey? And you can see, I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, but it says, can we come back tomorrow, mommy? So for me as a designer, that was like, I guess the first place ribbon or something that you could get for design, in that here we've transformed an environment from what could be a very scary thing to something where a young child, a girl, would like to come back and experience this again at another date. So the sedation rate in here has also gone down quite a bit. Here's one that we just worked on in San Francisco that I thought I would share with you. And this is a little bit thinking about, I call it alien eyes, or thinking about how can you get as many people working on the problem as you can. And as you saw earlier on, I love working with the kids. That's my favorite thing to do, the young adults, working on what some of these things could be. But also, we were doing a series of rooms in San Francisco at the new UCSF hospital there. And just to give him props, see if I can, right here, that gentleman right there is Bruce. He's from Disney, and we thought, could we bring alien eyes and have somebody from Disney? Because I just think Disney is awesome. I think when you go to Disney Park, you go anything Disney, it's just amazing how they can really transform an experience. Even waiting in line is fun at Disney, right? I'm thinking, how can I get some of that inspiration into one of our workshops? So I got in contact with Bruce, and I had no idea if he'd be a good guy to bring to a workshop. You can see the workshop below is all of the customers. So these are the technologists and leadership at the hospital, the architect of the new hospital, and some of the parent advisory board were in the meeting. And I was talking with Bruce on the phone, and I just asked him questions, and I said, so what are you working on, Bruce? And I remember on the phone he goes, I'm working on magical snow. And I'm thinking to myself, what? And he says, I can't tell you the name of the movie, but you guys know what it is because the picture's up there. He goes, but we have a dancing and a really cool snowman, and for a really cool snowman, you can't have regular snow. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I need to get this guy to the workshop. So we had a 3-day workshop, and that was Bruce and one of our brainstorming sessions there with the Parents Advisory Board and the staff of the hospital. You can see all the sticky notes and craziness there of moving it out. And one of the ones, I have another picture of it there, is in the upper left there is a cable car experience. And what we found in MRI is the big kind of magnet with a hole in it is definitely a fear factor. But the noise is gigantic fear factor for these kids. How many people here, I can probably see you have had an MRI? Oh my gosh. Don't rush the stage afterwards. Yeah, it's not so good, right? It goes from dun, 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 brrr, makes those crazy sounds, and it's really loud in there. So what we did is we actually were talking with the kids, and you'll see, I think I have pictures of this. We have Muir Woods and a couple other rooms that we did for San Francisco. We have a Harbor Bay one. But for the cable car, the kids just love the cable car. No matter what age group we talk to, they love the cable car. And what we realized is the cable car is pretty noisy. You know, you got the guy with the engineer with the glove, and it's grabbing the cable. It's got all those sounds that are very mechanical. So we did an actual cable car for our MR. And it's pretty neat. I see the technologists that are taking like a young boy through the scan, and they'll go, have you been on a cable car in the city? And usually the child will say, yeah, I've been on there before. It was really fun. And he goes, remember how that was kind of noisy? And usually the child will say, yeah, I remember how it was kind of noisy. He goes, well, yeah, so's ours. And they walk in the room together. It's just beautiful. It's just reframing this into, in fact, if there was not noise in this room, I'd have to bring it in. So we have another MRI. Actually, I think we're also bringing this one to Miami Children's. is it actually looks like a spaceship. So you can imagine, the technologist going, okay, Bobby, hold really still. And if you hold really still, we're going to go into turbo speed. And when we go into turbo speed, you're going to be going really fast, so you definitely got to hold really still. So then when the magnet goes dunk, 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 brrr, they think they're going super fast. They'll even come out and they'll go, Mom and Dad, did you see how fast I'm going? And guys, this scanner here is 25 times the gravitational pull of the Earth. That's how strong that magnet is. And it weighs a gazillion tons. I'm not an engineer, I'm a designer, but it weighs a lot. So they're not going anywhere, right? But if they've reframed themselves into this journey, they're actually going somewhere, which is pretty cool. Another thing we do, which is in design thinking, that really is thinking about the stages all along the way to get empathy. And that's really what I wanted to bring to this talk for sure. So this is a full-scale mock-up room that we made in our studio. I'm from right outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin in Waukesha. And this is a room that we did, and we actually measured out the exact same size as their room. And if you look, it's just butcher block white paper on the walls. And we're using chalk, and we're just sidewalk chalk, and we're just drawing different ideas on there. But we invited the staff of the hospital also to come in and do that with us. And I still remember when we're talking to the director of pediatric radiology, so he's a pretty big dude, right, in the food chain at the hospital. And he's talking to us, and he's got like chalk all over him, right, all over his pants, all over his shirt, because he's been leaning over, he's been drawing on the floor. And he's just totally into this experience of helping us to make something special for his community, which is really cool. So I like to say the person in the meeting with a prototype wins, and also they lose their prototype. So a lot of those little scale rooms that we bring to show to the hospital and have the kids help us develop, they always keep them. So it's a great way to get more empathy and use your prototype and use your ideation and all your different phases as a tool to learn more empathy from and test your assumptions with the folks that you're doing it for. So here's a bigger version of the cable car MR adventure, one of my favorite ones. So if you've been to San Francisco and seen where the cable cars go down and they turn around, we just did a circle on the floor there, so it looks like that's where the cable car turns around. Our table is a mobile table, so it comes in on that road. Sometimes the patient's on the table, sometimes they're not. And then there's a whole, when you're raised up on the table and you move into the scanner, it really is embraced by the story. And then the tech window is on the left there. We can do some graphics on there. So these graphics are similar to what you see on the side of a bus, where you'll see the graphics like Channel 4, and then it goes over the windows as well. It's the same stuff. It's 3M vinyl graphic that we can put on there, very easy to clean. But that's a bike rental shop, and that's where they get the tickets for their ride. So the child will come in and get actually a ticket to get their MR scan. And for adults, we go, that doesn't really, it makes a little sense, but not a lot of sense. For kids, oh my gosh, whether it's stickers, tickets, anything you give them, they think they're really going on a ride if you give them some ticket. And actually when they leave, they won't throw it away. If you try to get it from them, you aren't getting it from them. They're holding on to that ticket because they want to talk at their show and tell, or if their dad didn't come with them to the scan, they want to tell them about their scan that they had in the MR scanner. This one also has projections, so if you look really close between the trees on the back there, those big redwood trees, and you see the clouds on the top, in the waiting room, the family can actually pick what kind of animation they want to be projected on the wall in there. So when they walk into the room, they actually can see what environment they created for themselves. So there's this anticipation, there's this excitement that they have when they go into the room because they've created on themselves on an iPad and they've created what they want. So it's hard to see, the black screen on the very top is also a display. So it'll be like a hot air balloon that goes across the wall, but when you look up from the table, it'll look like you're looking at the bottom of the hot air balloon going. So there's a real rhythm to how everything flows together on this room. There we go. I have one more quick story to tell you. This one is a little bit more on the software side, and I think you could tell that one was really more about creating a patient experience and really creating something special for the families to go through. But there's so many places in healthcare. I don't know how many healthcare folks we have here, but if I look at Ray Kurzweil's curves, we got a lot of curve to go up, right? We're way down here where we can get so much better wherever we go, and I'm excited to do that. So I want to show you one more example here. This is a beautiful picture that somebody sent me. And it took me a while to figure it out, but this is actually twins. So they were just born, and how happy, look at mom, how happy she looks with the twins. And the picture there on the right you can see is a little baby that's in the incubator. A lot of times if they're premature babies, they have to stay in the incubator for a while. But look at that picture of the craziness that's in that room. So it's such an intense environment. And it's really that clash with this happy moment that's happening here that we see in healthcare a lot of times, and for sure in this one. So there's this experience, if you look on the left side, that's kind of the baby's experience in the baby's world. So if you look, there's a little baby, little infant there, hugging, it looks like a hippo teddy bear there, it's just beautiful. And look at how the family has decorated that incubator. They've made a little pink, looks like a blanket on the top, and some of the cards and things they put around that. But if you look on the other side of that dashed line, that's the data side. So that's the size of the equipment right above the baby of what it looks like. And it looks like maybe even a DOS screen from, I don't know, 8 years ago or 10 years ago or something, is that it has a little knob that you see the hand there that's turning it, and it toggles through these screens. If you look at all the information on that big screen there, it's got, you can even imagine as a nurse coming in to try to figure out which information is important and not. It's really hard to see, and you can see the nurse actually there reaching across the whole incubator there to adjust it. So it's really this clash of what the parents have in their environment, and they got to be in there for a long time with what technology's got there. So here's what we came up with. This is our new giraffe incubator. And what we found out in our empathy sessions was a lot of the parents, for sure, were taking pictures of the screen along with the pictures of the baby as the baby was growing. And they wanted to show that the heartbeat, they wanted to show certain things. But remember, that screen before was crazy. It was all kinds of craziness. So what we developed here, this is one of the screens here. First of all, it's touch-based, so they can lean up and touch the interface versus the toggle knob. It's much easier to clean, much easier to interact with. And when we also worked with the nurses in there, there was way too much information even for them on there. So this is one of the screens we developed here. It's just a beautiful, this is in a night mode, because a lot of times it's kind of dim in the environment there. We have a little giraffe that's sleeping there. And then it really has a personal touch to the software. My last weight was 1052 grams. And it goes through, and now the parent can take a picture of that. They can put it on Instagram or whatever they want to do. They can send it to the grandparents, people that can't be there. And then also for the technologists and the nurses to come in the room, some of the things that they want to see is they want to see things like the air, and they want to see some of the temperature of the baby that's up at the top, the really big numbers. And they can actually see those from across the room, so they don't even have to go up to the incubator unless they have to. And then also we found that the alarms were very alarming to the parents in that those things go off all the time, and sometimes you really need to know, and sometimes you didn't. And when is the nurse need to come in or not come in? It was just crazy. So we made that a lot simpler to silence that alarm for the nurse when they come in the room versus having to go through multiple screens to figure out how to do that. So that's kind of a software example. So kind of in closing, I just want to say that getting empathy for your users and really understanding, and the picture up here on the right again, that's the one that had the birthing room and just that kind of realistic but need for improvement kind of around the world kind of work we need to do. This is one of our new mobile ultrasound scanners here, so you can see the clinician there, and she's actually doing the scan of the mom rurally in the environment that it needs to be in. So a lot of times these, sometimes it's a midwife, sometimes it's just the technology that remotely goes out there. So sometimes they're even on like a little scooter, or sometimes they're even on like a donkey or something going back through the hills into these areas where moms need to get some treatment. So we've developed this new system, almost looks like the old flip phone, that you can flip up and then you can actually go through and do the ultrasound scan. And kind of the magic to this, and it actually goes back to, I think, Ray Kurzweil, some of his really cool curves, is that remember that image is done there in some remote village by this technologist, and that's going up to the satellite or the cloud, and it's going down, and somebody at Mayo Clinic or somebody here in Miami is actually reading that scan and helping the technologist understand, do we need more scans? Is this something we need to get the mom to a clinic if possible? What needs to happen here? So to get that kind of technology in the hands of the people that really need it so we can broaden that environment of making it better. So that's all I have to share with you today. Hopefully my talk inspired you a little bit. to think about the empathy and really take your customer. I know a lot of times we say customer determines our success. I know I work with a lot of folks from GM, and they also say customers are compass. So if you think of the customer really helping you to find your way, I think that'll be a great thing for you to do, especially all you entrepreneurs. Thank you very much.